Hello, guys, and welcome to Italian Serie A Matchday 7. Let's analyze all the games, of course, with Daniele Fisichella, and we have a very good weekend because we have Milan, Napoli, Roma, Atalanta, and we see Juventus in the 8th spot. Danny, and getting robbed in Serie A. This is new.
Well, I mean, this is new. Someone said in Italy, VAR was invented to punish Juventus. Well, then maybe even Benfica was invented to punish Juventus. Anyway, look, let's leave it there. Juve were appalling for 65 minutes against Salernitana. Then they had a good reaction. They should have won. I mean, the VAR mistake is incredible with the images that went there, but they were poor against Benfica. They were poor anyway, and they lost, so they are almost out of the Champions League. But the race to the top is very good. I think there are 7 teams in 6 points, 4 points, something like that. Napoli at the top, of course. Udinese and Atalanta also punching above the weight. I feel it's going to be competitive.
We have already one comment. Juve will lose. Well, we will come to that in a minute. In the meantime, don't forget to leave your comments and, of course, like this video and subscribe to the channel. And now let's go on with the show. Bad times to be Juventino because, as we were mentioning in the last match day, they were this close also to win, to lose, and at the end they drew against Salernitana. Our first game, Danny, Salernitana, Lecce, 2 teams from the south with an impressive start for Salernitana. 7 points, no defeat since match day 1 against Roma. 3 consecutive draws. We cannot say exactly the same against Lecce, but here and there they are picking some points. 3 draws in the last 4 games. I don't know if you will get these odds for you. Is fair enough. 2.2 for Salernitana to beat Lecce.
It's risky for Salernitana, going for Salernitana, despite how well they played for 65 minutes at the Juventus Stadium, and they were deservedly 2-0 up. Then when it was 2-1, maybe they even thought they could wrap it up 3-1, and they left themselves a little bit exposed, and then they backed off too much. Look, in the end, it was chaotic, but do not take anything away from Salernitana. Why do I say this is risky? Because Salernitana, it is true, they don't lose many games. Since Davide Nicola took charge, completely transformed the team. They only lost 2 of the last 14 games in Serie A. Only Milan and Napoli have done better, but they've drawn 7 out of 11. So they are a bit of a kings of the draws, if you like. But they are a very good side. Players know what to do. They stack to the task. They fight. They got also very technical players in the middle. Dia, Villegna, Mazzocchi, one of the best wing backs. He gave Quadrado a torrid time on the right-hand side. So they were superb. And, they are 6th in Serie A, Salernitana, for shots taken. So they play on the front foot. And if you look at the numbers, at this stage last season, they scored 4 goals. Now they score 9. And last season, at this stage, they conceded 15. Now they only conceded 6. So they go already 7 points in the table. So it's a very good progress. So normally, it is a team that scores. It is a team that is also vulnerable sometimes at the back. And now they meet Lecce for the first time in Serie A. This is the first. And I think Lecce, despite not winning at the weekend against Monza, they should be positive, because I think in the end they should have had a penalty, another massive VAR mistake against Monza for a handball from Pablo Mari. The worrying things for Lecce is that they haven't kept a single clean sheet so far. But it's a team that likes to go forward, plays positive, with Banda, with Cisse, with Di Francesco, also very good midfield in Homeland. So they are, they can pick up points. I think we said it from after the first game against Inter. They're going to be tough to play against. Both to score here on the Friday game. It pays well, 182. I think, both could be in the score sheet.
Who is in the VAR room, Danny, in Italy? Andrea Bocelli, maybe.
Well, I don't know. Like, that's a cheap joke. I think I mean, the explanation why the goal was not given, it's ridiculous. They didn't have the image that everyone else had because they thought that game was a category B game, so they didn't assign enough cameras. It's ludicrous. Anyone would have seen, even in the stadium, they would have seen Candreva was keeping Bonucci inside. Has to be changed. Now they're going to bring the semi-automatic offside. Let's see how it works. But yeah, I mean, it is appalling. And Juventus are right to complain. But they were dreadful for 65 minutes after all.
Well, Lecce, one of the teams with no victories yet. We have 5 teams with no victories in Serie A. Also, Empoli traveling to Bologna. The change of manager worked for Bologna. First victory of the season against Fiorentina. And as I said, Empoli lost, Danny, against Roma. Last season, they had a great start, and then they were going down and down and down. And this one, they started very low.
It seemed a very typical Empoli game, the one against Roma. They produced a lot of chances. They conceded a lot of chances. In the end, it could have finished 4-2 for Roma, 5-3. Vicario, the Empoli goalkeeper, was the man of the match. But, you know, Empoli, they were a little bit unlucky because they hit the post twice. But in the end, I think Roma deserved to win. They need to start winning games. I think they are playing better now, you know, with the new manager, with the Paolo Zanetti. I think they're doing well. They are very propositive as a team, but they need to start picking up points. Otherwise, they're going to be in the relegation fight. Only one win for Empoli in the last 14 away games. Last season, at the end, they were dreadful. But this season, you know, last weekend, they were second for chances created. They created 17 chances with Roma overall. So they play a Bologna side who won the first game of the season. There's going to be Thiago Motta on the bench now. A Bologna side that hasn't kept a clean sheet so far. But against Fiorentina, which is another team a little bit in crisis, they did enough. They exploited a couple of Fiorentina mistakes and capitalized. In the end, they didn't have to suffer too much. Arnautovic, another goal, is 6-6. He picked up a knock, but he should be fit for this one. So Empoli winless in 6 games. The last time it happened was in 2003, 2004, and they were relegated. And Bologna, very difficult team to judge and to beat, to bet on, because they haven't won back-to-back games since December 2021. So that could be a first. Because of the way Empoli approaches games and because of the fact that Bologna have got goal scorers, I'm going to go for an over, 2.5 goals, 190.
Okay, Kishore is going for a draw here with a small unit, and we have to say hello to Kamel,
hi,
from Qatar. Yeah, soon we will be putting our eyes, of course, in Qatar. But before, on Saturday, we have a derby in Liguria, Spezia, Sampdoria. Sampdoria, one of these teams also with no victories, only 2 points, is not getting better for them, although they put Milan in trouble. Perhaps even they deserved some points in that game. Danny, Spezia, only 1 victory, only lost 1-0 against Napoli. Always a sticky team against Napoli in the Maradona. Tough one, no? The bookies expect a draw, actually.
Yeah, it is tough because both teams, I don't think they're in a great form. Perhaps Sampdoria, they could call themselves a little bit unlucky. They hit the post twice against Milan, 6 times in total this season they hit the post or the bar. But, you know, they were against 10 men against Milan. They couldn't hang on to the 1-1. Again, the lack of character, the lack of fighting spirit, load of nervousness on the sideline from his manager Giampaolo, who got sent off. But then it doesn't translate on the pitch. Worst Serie A start for Sampdoria ever. I'm not expecting a lot of goals because these two teams, because Sampdoria, they only play with 1 striker, and Spezia, you know, sometimes they are very defensively minded. Spezia are bottom for shots on target in Serie A. Sampdoria are third from bottom. So I wouldn't expect too many goals. Spezia are winless in 5, no clean sheets in 5. Normally, against the other Liguria team, this is a derby, by the way, because they're very close to each other in the same region. Normally, they do well. They are unbeaten in 8 out of 10 derbies against Genoa and Sampdoria. That also tells you how bad Genoa and Sampdoria have been recently. Last year, they won both derbies 1-0. And normally, Spezia, it is a funny team because against the top teams, apart from Napoli, they don't put up a fight. You can write them off. They normally lose without scoring. Against the teams that are smaller, that have got less points than them, that's where they gain the points, especially at home. And in fact, in the last 7 games, when they face the team with less points than them, Spezia have never lost. So they are good at knowing where to pick up the points. Maybe they might win in this one, but I'm going to be cautious here. I'm going to go for an Asian handicap for Sampdoria. I think overall, they got better squad. They shouldn't be losing this one, but I'm going to go for Asian handicap 0 in the second half, 195, which means they could lose the first half. As long as they don't lose the second half, you either get your money back or you win, 195.
Kishore is telling us, Danny, I'm not sure about this. Actually, we usually see more goals between teams in the bottom of Serie A.
Well, because you probably think they are not very good at defending, but they're not very good at attacking either. And, sometimes they're content with a point. It depends. I mean, it's early in the season. Maybe later on, look, these are very, very difficult games to judge because you got a team like Sampdoria that is underperforming. So you never know. They might kick on and finally get the points that maybe they were looking for. It is very difficult to judge.
On Saturday, also, we have Torino, Sassuolo, 2 teams in the middle of the table. Overall, I think Torino is doing better than Sassuolo in this start of the season. Losing against Inter, but deserving a lot more. Torino in the last game at home, they beat already Lecce, drew against Lazio. Danny, whereas this Sassuolo, only 1 victory so far.
It's difficult with Sassuolo, but only 1 victory. Kept 3 clean sheets, which is unusual. Consigli is one of the keepers that is making less saves in Serie A, so they're not conceding many chances. But on the other hand, they're not scoring. So they are without wins in 4. That's the longest negative streak since February 2021. I don't think they are more defensively minded with Udinese. I think they just lack the personnel up front. They sold Scamacca, they sold Raspadori, Berardi's injured, De Frel is injured. The new signings are not clicking really. Only 1 goal for Pinamonti. So I think they're really lacking the personnel. Okay, against Udinese, they were beaten in the last few minutes, but Udinese were running more. They were creating more chances in the end. It's difficult to see where Sassuolo goes. I don't think they are the goal machine that we used to see, especially when they were traveling away last season. When it comes to Torino, very unlucky against Inter. Andanovic was the best man on the pitch. They should have scored. I mean, they will have regrets. They need to take the chances against big teams. Against medium-sized teams at home, they are obviously very reliable. They beat Lecce a couple of weeks ago with a very professional performance without going over the top, but they just did enough. And I'm expecting them to do the same. They kept 2 consecutive clean sheets. They only lost 3 out of 18 games against Sassuolo. They always scored against Sassuolo in the last 11 games, but I think they do have the personnel, Torino, and and a deep enough squad, I think, to see Sassuolo. And the odds, by the way, are great for a home win, 191, for a team that has been better than Sassuolo in the last year and a half. Yeah, I'll go for it. 191. That's my tip. Torino win. When I checked, it was 187. So I mean, it's a bit higher now. Yeah, but still go for it.
Kamel is going for a draw here. For instance, the odds are very good, 4.0. If you think Sassuolo can grab a point here. Then on Sunday, starting with a very good game, Udinese Inter, tough test for Inter. In Friuli, they had 2 consecutive victories, very important. Danny, you mentioned the one against Torino, probably undeserved, but against Victoria Pilsen, they controlled the game. They had so many chances, so Nana didn't have to participate a lot. And now it's a big test because they've already lost in against Milan, against Lazio, playing away in this Serie A, and Udinese is in great form, 4 consecutive victories.
Yeah, and you can see the odds. I mean, the odds for Inter to win here are high, and I think this is right. 196. Yeah, it is. It is right. The bookies, I think they got it. They got it spot on because it's gonna be tough for Inter. They're gonna play one of the fittest team in Serie A, one of the teams that runs the most, but also keeps the ball well. Is a very physical side. Already beaten Roma. They are doing well. 13 points. They scored the same number of goals as Inter. And, it's not just about running and playing on the counter-attack. They are keeping the ball. Last week against Sassuolo, they were overall in Serie A the second team for percentage of passes completed, 89%, and the top team for ball possession. And there's not just the more experienced players like Deulofeu, Massina, Pereira, all the ones that went from Watford to Udinese, by the way, that are doing well. Also, the young players, and now in the second season, they are more mature and they're shining. Players like Lovric, Samardzic, and then they got Beto, who is a very strong, physically center forward. Is going to give Inter something to worry about. Inter at midweek against Victoria Pilsen, they did the job. I think they were not exciting. They should have done much more. They could have scored about much more. But, they play such a low rhythm game. They were always in control. Yeah, I mean, it was almost a training practice for Inter. But I wonder, do they lack a little bit of physical condition, Inter? Because, yeah, the tempo of the game is very slow. And it was low for the first 50 minutes against Torino. They kept a clean sheet back-to-back for the first time this season. We will see probably Andanovic back in goal because Onana is the Champions League goalkeeper now. The good sign for Inter is that some players' condition is improving. Skriniar, Bastoni, Brozovic. Lautaro was rested for 70 minutes midweek. But I think there is still the problem of who plays at left wing-back. Since there is no Perisic there, really, it is an issue. Whether it's Gosens, who's not himself anymore, Di Marco, Darmian is adapted. Yeah, I think Udinese gonna go there with a 3-5-2, same as Inter. The Inter gonna find it. I'm gonna find it hard. And yeah, I would expect Dzeko who had a good game against Pilsen to start against Lautaro. I'm gonna give Udinese here a bit of an advantage. I'm not gonna go as far as a double chance, although it pays well. Let's go for a Asian handicap plus 0.25 in the first half, which pays 186, which means if Udinese wins the first half, you win. If they draw, you win half your stake. If they lose the first half, which I don't think they will, you lose your stake.
Kishore is telling us both teams to score. Of course, the odds for Udinese.
That's a nice one.
Udinese. That's a nice one. Yeah, Udinese double chance, for instance, pays well, but we were checking also the head-to-head, and it's very favorable for Inter in the last 5 years. 2 draws and 7 victories for Inter. No defeats against Udinese. So in the head-to-head, Inter is really dominant against the other team in the north of Italy, in Udine. Let's stay, Danny, in the north. Cremonese, Lazio, 2 points for Cremonese was one of the biggest surprises of the last match day because they could grab a point in Bergamo against Atalanta, 2 consecutive draws at the end. Playing well is paying off for Cremonese, something that you were saying, Danny, in this start of the season. A challenge here for Lazio because away they drew against Sampdoria, they drew against Torino. Perhaps this one can be another draw.
It could be. And they come after a long trip to Norway after playing Midtjylland in midweek. We don't know the results at the time of recording this one. And Lazio comes after an okay performance against Verona, a very bad first half. After the midweek game, which was scintillating against Feyenoord for at least 50 minutes. I think what happened with Verona, they started slowly, then they made the changes, and the changes made the difference. Lazio got a stronger squad than Verona, and that was enough. But let's see if they feel a little bit of fatigue after the second Europa League game, especially with Sarri not making too many changes up front. But again, the quality of the Lazio players in the difficult situation so far this season is showing. Milinkovic to Immobile. That's a great partnership. The Serbian gives assist, the Italian scores, and I've read a stat. Milinkovic-Savic assisted Immobile 23 times in Serie A. In total, 53% of all his assists have been to Immobile. So there is a great connection there. They know the movement of each other, which could be dangerous for Cremonese, who got a good point, deserved point at Bergamo against Atalanta, despite still conceding a lot of chances. Radu, the goalkeeper, is the keeper that makes the most saves so far in Serie A, 38. The second one, the keeper from Spezia, made 26. So that tells you how much pressure they do receive. Cremonese only kept one clean sheet in 6, but when they go forward, they have got courage. They got players that can break the lines, create something. Sernicola, Piquel, Valeri, they always play with two up fronts, Dessers and Okereke. So, in the end, they are propositive. The thing with Cremonese is sometimes, obviously, they don't keep the ball very well. That's why they end up conceding so many chances. They are the bottom for percentage of completed passes. They can't keep the ball well. That's the problem. So they could really be vulnerable to the counterattacks of Lazio. Difficult to back a winner on another. I'm gonna go for probably one of the most obvious one. If Lazio is gonna be on the attack more, they're gonna have more corners, I would imagine. So if you go for the Asian handicap corners minus 1.5, it pays 192. So basically, for you to win the stake, Lazio needs to take 2 more corners than Cremonese.
Pool is telling us that second half highest scoring half, 1.98. If we see more goals in the second half, if it's tough to pick up a winner in Cremonese Lazio, even harder for Fiorentina. Verona, very low odds for Fiorentina to win, 1.8. Only one victory, remember, for the Viola in this Serie A was in the initial match day against Cremonese. Also, only one victory for Verona this season against Sampdoria. Both come from defeats. Danny, both teams are worse than last season, that's for sure.
Yeah, they are worse. Inexplicably, Fiorentina are worse than last season because they got a better squad. They've added Barak, they've added Jovic, they've added Dodò, although he's injured. And Verona, understandably, they're worse because they sold the 3 players up front: Caprari, Simeone, Barak. Barak went to Fiorentina, and they need to find the right balance. But I'm really disappointed with Fiorentina because it doesn't work. They keep the ball a lot, but very sterile possession, and they lack focus in the key moments. So they are first for ball possession, third for shots in Serie A, first for corners taken. So all these good numbers. They keep the ball well also in their own half. Only 5 goals scored. They lack end product, lack of focus. They miss the last passage of play. They miss shot. So it seems like there is a bit of confusion going on, a little bit of nervousness as well because the results are not coming. Igor got sent off stupidly against Bologna. Yeah, they cannot see games off. And now they got the injuries of Dodò on the right-hand side and Milenkovic, and the game midweek in the Conference League to negotiate with. This could be tough for Fiorentina, which, by the way, last season were magnificent at home. I think they were the 3rd team in the table at home, so they pick up a lot of good results. Verona, a little bit of the same story. They play well. They don't finalize. They don't have the goal scorers. Lasagna, Henry, they do a lot of work, but in front of goals, they're still lacking something. No clean sheets for Verona so far. So that's why maybe you might want to back Fiorentina here. Is a good price, 185 for a home win, which they're due. But I'm going to go for something different. I'm going to go for an Asian handicap plus 0.25 for Verona in the first half. So similar to the Udinese tip. So if you finish 0-0 the first half or 1-1 or they draw, you win half your stake. If Verona manage to win the first half, you win. So it's a little bit of a parachute. I think they're going to give Fiorentina a hard time.
Next game, Monza, Juve. Of course, we all know that Juventus are not in a great time to see the less, but Juventus to win 1.9.
Wow.
I think we have to take this in consideration, Danny, despite the bad moment for Juve, losing also in the Champions League, 8th in the standings in the Serie A, but they are playing against the bottom of the table with only 1 point. That's why, even if they are in very hard moment, I would take these odds.
Straight away. We can end up the analysis here. Look, Juve
Exactly.
to win 190, no doubt about it. Actually, before going on air, I checked the odds were a little bit lower. Obviously, they went higher after Juventus were defeated deservedly by Benfica. And I was going for a Juventus as an handicap minus 0.75, which pays 2.9. It's a bit ambitious, perhaps. But yeah, Juventus to win. Why? Not because I think Juventus are in a great form or are playing good football, but because I think football is weird sometimes. Even when you're in your lowest moment, you can still find a reaction, maybe of anger, maybe of nerves. And they play Monza, who just sacked the manager, Strop. It is a team that hasn't got yet an identity. They got a new manager in Palladino, which, by the way, is a former Juventus player, not experienced in Serie A. They haven't created many chances, Monza, in Serie A. They are the worst attack. It will take time to gel, but I think the quality is there. Everyone expected more from Monza. But yeah, it comes to Juventus. They need a reaction. They cannot just go and draw with Salernitana, although they should have won. Okay, the goal should have stood. Lose against Benfica. They're basically out of the Champions League already in September, unless they manage to win in Portugal. The Juventus that played yesterday doesn't win in Portugal. And, you know, it just doesn't work. I think there is a lack of belief in players. Very few players go and try and do a one-to-one and go past players. There is a lack of understanding on the pitch. They look very disjointed, very far from each other. Everything is on the shoulders of the young Miretti, who's got good skills, but he cannot do everything at 20 years old. And then, yeah, the lack of service for Vlahovic. Yesterday, Allegri reverted back to the back 3-5-2. Maybe this is a better formation, but for this game, they miss Milik, who suspended. They miss Cuadrado as well. So I don't think they're going to go back to the 3-5-2. Moise Kean and Vlahovic, they are really completely in two different worlds. They don't speak the same language. They do struggle passing the ball to each other. The only caveat for Juve is that they got so many injuries, and maybe the team is going to be different in January. Of course, they're going to be better personnel, but yeah, I still believe they're going to win for this one. You know, it is weird. Somehow it's weird, but I think they're going to pick up the 3 points and I go for a Juve win.
Paul is asking you, Danny, do you see Allegri leaving Juve soon?
Paul, Allegri is unsackable for this season for 2 reasons mainly. He's been chosen by Juventus president Andrea Agnelli. They are in very good personal terms. He's got a contract until 2025, although there is a clause he can free himself a bit earlier, and he's the most paid manager in Serie A, 9 million. So Juventus has spent a lot of money already in the transfer market. I wonder how they can afford to pay a top manager that's going to replace him, like, let's say, the likes of Thomas Tuchel and Allegri. And also, as I said before, there is the alibi. The alibi for Allegri is, I haven't got the players that I wanted this season because they're all injured. We are without Pogba, been without Di Maria so far, without Chiesa, without Locatelli now is injured, Szczesny's been injured, Rabiot's been injured. So you put Chiesa, Pogba back in the contention. It is a different team. So what they need to do, hopefully for them, is to manage the short term, try to get the wins now, and then hope that when they come back between November and January, they are in touch with the top team. And then probably they could kick the season on. But if they start losing too many points now, the title race might be gone before they even know it. But no, Allegri to be sacked, no way.
Still, Juve is the third favorite to win the title, as we were seeing here below. Most of the people also think that this is a Juventus victory, as we said. Very good odds. Next game, we have 2 more games, and what games? Roma, Atalanta. Last season, actually, Roma beat Atalanta twice. Atalanta, Danny, dropping points against weak teams, like also last season, but playing away so far, 3 victories against Sampdoria, Verona, Monza, all without conceding. This Roma already leaving some doubts. Luckily for them, they were able to beat Empoli, again with Dybala in the score sheet. Roma is 2.2, but I think it's going to be different from the game we saw last season as well.
Yeah, it is going to be different because Atalanta is a different side this season. They don't score many, but they don't concede either. And that's why probably they had the best start of Serie A for many, many times, only conceding 3 goals. So that's a record. So it's the best defense so far. Nobody would have thought. I think because Gasperini knows that his team is still not right there in terms of positions, in terms of the starting 11, they're not taking many risks. So they're not clicking. I don't think they are as good to watch and as fluid in their passages of play as they used to be. But on the contrary, they sit back a little bit more and they try to do the bare minimum. They got problems in attack as well with Zapata, Muriel no scoring. There's a lack of creativity. Nobody really to make the final, the final pass, if you like. Malinowski, it's very difficult to read. Probably wanted to leave in the summer and he didn't. So that's affecting them. But it is a team that can make your life really hard, as Milan saw a few weeks ago, especially in terms of intensity. And now they go to Roma, which a very good start of the season, best point tally since 2017. Dybala, I know, why are we surprised? He's one of the best players in Serie A. He's doing what he's used to do, 3 goals, 2 assists. It was magnificent against Empoli. I wonder whether Juventus fans are regretting it now, letting him go. They do create a lot of chances against Empoli. Roma, they hit the post twice, but also Empoli hit the post twice. What it seems to me that Roma still haven't got the balance right. Maybe they haven't absorbed Dybala too well in their system. So every time they create something, as a default, they almost have to concede some chances. So it's not quite that. I don't think it's really the system that works for Mourinho. And sometimes in midfield, Cristante and Matic, they don't offer a lot of creativity. They're a bit static. But it is a team that deservedly won against Empoli. They picked themselves up against 2 defeats. Now they play Helsinki at home tonight. I think they'll win that one comfortably. And they go into the game full of confidence. But for this one, I see some people suggest Atalanta +1, draw in the first half. Yeah, I am leaning with you. I think they're going to make it hard for Roma. Asian handicap 0 in the first half for Atalanta, 223. So that means if Atalanta wins the first half, you win your stake. If they draw, no worries. Money back.
Player cam under 2.5 in this match. Last season was 1-0 for Roma, but usually if we check the head-to-head, we see many goals in this Roma-Atalanta in the recent history. At least both teams to score is something that we are used to see. Yeah. But hard to pick up a winner here in Roma-Atalanta. And the last game, Partita Scudetto, Milan Napoli, both with 14 points, both coming from victories in the Champions League, very important for both sides. Last season, Napoli were able to beat Milan playing away. Danny, wow, this one is also very, very hard to predict if you go for the outright market.
Okay, let's start with the players missing. No Osimhen for Napoli, no Leao for Milan, so that takes a lot away from both teams. Leao by far the best player, probably best player in Serie A so far. These are the 2 teams that scored the most in Serie A so far, but without these 2 players, it could be different. Also, Napoli have a strong defense, a very strong organization. They showed against Liverpool. They showed against Rangers as well. What a great performance against Rangers, by the way. I think now the perception about Napoli in Europe is changing. They won the first 2 Champions League games back-to-back since 2016. So I think it was an exam of maturity. Milan beat Dinamo Zagreb, but they struggled in the beginning against a very organized team. And then in the second half, when the Croats were tired a little bit, they find more spaces. The problem with Milan is that because of injuries, Origi, Rebic, Ibrahimovic, it's always the same players they have to play. So it's always Giroud and Leao. This time there is no Leao. We'll see Messias, probably the Cateler as well, and Salemakers. But let's see, because the Cateler has been in and out of the team so far. So I want to see him playing 3-4 games in a row starting. But we know Milan, great organization, great team spirit. Even if they go behind in games, they don't get fast about it. They keep going. And they picked up a lot of results from losing position so far this season. So positive for Milan, of course. Napoli, positive as well. I think the starting 11 of Napoli is not inferior to anybody in Serie A. I'm talking about the 11 players that start, not the substitutions, not the rotation. That's where maybe the league might be won or lost. But with the starting 11 Napoli and with the players like Lobotka, Zielinski, Kvaratskhelia in great form, also Simeone and Raspadori playing the part, they can be confident. They played one day after that they wanted to because of the Rangers game has been postponed. Maybe that could be an issue. Look, I think this is an under. This is a proper tactical game between Pioli and Spalletti. A draw wouldn't disappoint anybody at this stage of the season. And I think the last 4 meetings have finished under at San Siro. So under 2.5 goals, 195.
Yeah, if we check, it's like 1-0, 1-0, 1-0 in this game. Pace the same, actually, under 2.5 goals or over. In this case, Dan is going for under. As he's telling you, Marco is going for over, 1.75 goals. Well, also Pool is going for an over. Be careful, as Dan is saying, without Leao, without Osimhen. This could be an under. Danny, we broke down this Serie A match day with a lot of good games. Let's check your safe bet or your preferred bet for this match day.
You must, if you watch the show, you know what I'm going for. Juventus, they were too bad to be true in the last 2 games. Now they go to Monza, which are also abysmal so far. They're going to win it. They're going to win. They're going to scrape it. 1-0, maybe 2-0, 186, 190, whatever you prefer. Juventus to win.
We have to back the old lady, la vecchia signora, traveling to Monza. Also, like, is the team owned by Berlusconi, no? So it's another piece of argument to go with Juventus. They want to beat for sure Berlusconi. Danny, and your ACCA?
3 games this weekend. Bologna, Empoli, both to score. Udinese, Inter, both to score. Napoli are not going to lose at Milan at San Siro. Plus 0.25 on the handicap. Put them all together. 5.42. That's the last ACCA before the international break.
Exactly. In a couple of weeks, we are back with more Serie A. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Remember to leave your comments, like, and subscribe. Danny, bye-bye. Thank you.
Ciao, Edu. Speak soon.